Appendices. In this book, I'm going to skip Appendices A and B, which discuss the physical and the spiritual creations, and I'm only going to include Appendices C, D, and E. Appendix C, the Book of Life. Strong pieces of evidence showing the Earth is very old are fossil-bearing layers of sedimentary rocks. Sedimentary rocks contain a record of life on this planet. These rocks were originally deposited layer upon layer, the oldest layer on the bottom, and each successive layer gradually becoming younger. Logically, then, the evidence of the most ancient life forms should be at the bottom layer, while the most recent evidence of life should be near the top. The history of life is recorded in stone and can be read like a book. The records of the oldest life forms are on page 1. Turn to page 2 and its life, then page 1 is on the bottom, covered by page 2 on top. Turn to page 3 and its life, page 2 would be covered beneath page 3 with page 1 on the bottom. And so the history of life is written layer by layer, year after year, for millions of years. The book of life is thick. The current average rate of sedimentation is about 1 foot per 1,000 years. That means the Book of Life is more than 487 feet thick. The Book of Life contains about 92 miles of sediment that has evidence of life. This means that life has been on this planet for a very long time, for at least 487 million years. Appendix D, a mercy of God. There are good reasons why Hominidae, or mankind, were brought here when they were. This was a time when the earth was best suited for them. The climate and environment needed to be ready to help Hominidae survive. I also believe humans were placed here last of what they do to the environment. Humans create a tremendous amount of pollution as they modify their surroundings. Human pollution has wiped out many species of other living things. I also believe that it was a mercy of God to place humans here last. Apparently, it is frustrating for the spirits of the deceased to be without their bodies. Joseph F. Smith recorded, "For the dead had looked upon the absence of their spirits from their bodies as a bondage. The spirits of humans who were born first waited for no more than a few thousand years for the resurrection. It would have been terrible for them had they waited millions of years. God was merciful and saving our time until now." Appendix E, the flood and the continents. The scriptures teach that America was the land of Adam and Noah, so the flood that destroyed the wicked must have occurred in America. Noah built an ark for his people, got on it, and drifted to the European continent. I believe that the flood was just a regional flood, and not one which encompassed the entire planet. These are my reasons why. A worldwide flood not only would have killed the entire animal kingdom, just about all the plant life on this earth, and would have completely destroyed the aquatic ecosystem, and who knows what kind of impact it would have had on the climate for years to come. But perhaps the greatest proof that there was not a universal flood is the lack of geological evidence to support it. Had there been a universal flood, it would have wiped out life in the seas, would have changed the temperature and salinity of the seas, polluted the waters with billions of tons of debris from the land, sand, mud, dead creatures, and people included. The waters would have covered the entire planet with a layer of death. As the waters began to retreat, the suspended dirt and dead things would have settled to the bottom, forming a unique geological feature which would contain a conglomeration of dead land and sea creatures in a mud matrix. This layer would have been an unmistakable worldwide deposit, filling the valleys and lining the tops of the mountains. Does such a deposit exist? No. Geologists have been digging cores all over this planet and have never come up with such a thing. And not only geologists, but everyday people, while hiking in the mountains or digging basements for their houses, would be digging up the remains of creatures that would have died together in the flood. This deposit does not exist. Another piece of evidence that there could not have been a universal flood is the great diversity of life all over this planet. Why? Noah would have to do one of two things: pick up animals from all over the planet and put them back where he found them, or he would have had to drop these creatures, animals, plant, and fish off on different continents after the water subsided. But this was not the case. It would have been impossible. Each continent has its own unique life forms. For a specific example, look at some of the majority of the marsupials and where they live in Australia. To save the marsupials, Noah would have had to travel to Australia, pick up all the marsupials there, then as the waters receded, return back there and drop them all off. Another example is the pupfish of Death Valley. To save them, somehow Noah would have to travel to Death Valley, pick up the pupfish, keep their water temperature consistent, and then somehow return them back to the original home after the waters have subsided. I could go on ad nauseum, but these two examples are sufficient. There are some creatures so unique that they can only live in a certain valley or on a particular mountain. It would have been impossible for Noah to retrieve each, return them back to their natural environments. Continents in one place. We know that at one time the continents were together. However, there is a big difference between the plates naturally rifting over millions of years or being suddenly torn apart during the days of Peleg, as some believe. In the center of the Atlantic Ocean, there is a spreading center where magma rises at two plate boundaries called the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. The rocks, basalts there, contain evidence that the polarity of the planet has not been the same throughout geologic time. Its polarity has shifted from time to time during millions of years. When the basalt comes to the surface before it has time to cool, the metallic constituents of the rock orient themselves with the polarity of the planet at that moment. The rocks show Earth's polarity shifting over millions of years. If North America and Europe had spread apart at the same time during the days of Peleg, as many have assumed, then the metallic constituents in the magma, which rose up to fill the void in the rock, a great void over 3,000 miles, would have all oriented themselves to the polarity of the planet in one direction. The rocks don't show that. Flavius Josephus, a Jewish scholar who lived during the time of Romans sacked Jerusalem about 60 AD and wrote concerning the history of the Jews, explains that the division was a division among the people and not the land masses. I've noticed people quick to quote Josephus in many areas because of his authenticity, yet they skip this very important statement. He was called Peleg, because he was born at the dispersion of the nations to their several countries. For Phaleg among the Hebrews signifies division. There was not a universal flood, and the land masses were not divided in the days of Peleg.